This is episode 12 of Ruminate, a podcast about what's on our mind. I'm Rob Lewis, and with me as always is John Voorhees. Hi, John.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm very well, John. How are you?
Oh, doing all right. Surviving the snow in the U.S. because it's not snowing here, which is remarkable given how much snow has fallen on the East Coast.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been under the impression that you get a lot of snow normally. Have you just managed to avoid it this time, or?
Yeah, we have. I mean, this actually has been a really light year for us. I mean, we have had we've had a handful of times when it snowed, but only a few inches here and there, not like it's been doing out east. And, it's a slow news day, so everybody likes to watch this storm and see all the people raiding the grocery stores and emptying the shelves and stocking up and hoping that they'll survive the storm.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to get your bread in because that seems to be what people buy when they're panicking.
Right.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think if I was stuck in my house, I'd probably have enough food for quite a while, even without going out and buying anything else.
Yeah, it's true. And actually, it's a little surprising that this seems to have caught some people off guard because it was predicted for at least 3 or 4 days. This was not a surprise, but, some people decided they want to go out in it, which is probably not a good idea, especially in, like places like Virginia where they don't know how to drive in the snow.
Absolutely. I don't really know what to say to that, John, because I think let's.
I know, because you would probably do very poorly yourself.
Yeah. To be fair, if it snows here, we just shut the country down and we're done with it. We just wait until it's gone.
That's a good idea. Well, it's probably not around for very long anyway, right?
Oh no, we don't. We don't get enough snow for it to even be worth worrying about. If I showed you the kind of snow we get, you'd just laugh.
Yeah.
We really don't get a lot.
All right.
So how's your iPad Pro been going?
Oh, good. I'm really just slowly but surely taking advantage of all the things it has to offer. The other night I was watching something on Amazon Prime and thought to myself, I can put this in picture-in-picture mode and look around on Slack and Twitter while I'm doing that. And that was kind of neat. I mean, I just hadn't really thought to do it. And I historically haven't really watched a lot of video on my iPads, but it's really nice on the big screen, obviously. And one thing I noticed about Amazon Prime, which I'd only watched Amazon Prime through my Roku before. So I hadn't seen this feature, but if you play it on iOS, they have that X-ray feature that they have for the books on Kindle built into the video player, so you can, you're watching along and you're in a scene. You just tap the screen and it shows you down the left-hand side all the actors who are in that scene. It's particular to that scene, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, X-ray's really nice. I had that when I was using the Fire TV stick, and I was watching a few things on Prime, and as you say, being able to just pause it, on maybe some kind of obscure scene where you recognize, I don't know, somebody working behind a shop counter or something, and it will tell you who is in that scene. So you don't have to kind of go trawling through IMDb to find out who the actor was. Yeah, it's a really nice feature, and it seems like the kind of thing maybe Apple should be doing. They've clearly got the data. It's just kind of a shame that kind of thing isn't on the Apple TV.
Yep, I agree. That's about all I wanted to say about the iPad Pro, I guess, for now. I mean, the other thing I guess I set up yesterday was the Screens app, Screens 3. Set it up with an old Mac Mini that I have sitting in the basement attached to an old LCD TV, and it doesn't get used for much, but it's nice to have because you can keep it running, run some scripts on it and things like that. But it's really nice being able to control it from the iPad Pro, so I don't have to be down in the basement fiddling with it and turn it on a screen. I just do it through the iPad interface.
So have you been using it for any kind of, see if you're writing articles for Mac Stories now? Have you been using it for writing and that kind of thing, or are you still kind of just using it for kind of, as you say, Slack and browsing the internet and things like that?
Definitely using it for some writing. It depends what I'm writing about. I mean, I've done a couple of reviews of Mac apps, and it's hard to write on the iPad Pro but be reviewing a Mac app that you might want to be going back and referring to. So on those pieces, I've generally written it on my laptop. But no, I've been using it definitely for writing. It's nice, couple of different things. One, research and taking notes, and the other is just the writing itself. It works really well. I've got an older previous gen Apple Bluetooth keyboard that I hook up to it sometimes and put it in. It's got I've got one of those origami cases for the keyboard, which I don't think are sold anymore. But you prop it up in there and type. And I did order an Apple keyboard, the smart case, the other day.
So I assume from the way you say that you haven't quite got it yet, but I assume that's on its way.
No, it's amazing though. Both the pencil and the smart keyboard case are still have 1 to 3 week delivery times. When I went to get the case and I looked, and there's not a single one in any Apple store anywhere in the Chicago area, and they were quoting 2 to 3 week delivery times, and mine's supposed to come beginning of February sometime. And then I checked out the pencil, and it was still 1 to 2 week wait.
Wow, it sounds to me like that Apple just kind of weren't expecting the demand that they've had for this.
Yeah, I was a little surprised too, because I kind of figured that they would catch up fairly quickly after the holidays. That the holidays, there'd be a lot of people buying them from Christmas and so forth. But here we are, we're nearly to the end of January, and there's still a lot of pent up demand. It looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking of demand and things like that, we mentioned a while ago there was a Kickstarter called Xano, which raised millions of dollars. I'm just trying to find the total.
Yeah, that was a drone, right?
Yeah, this was a kind of almost like an automated drone. They were kind of selling it that it would be able to kind of control itself and avoid obstacles, that kind of thing. And they raised $3.5 million, more or less. And we mentioned that Kickstarter had employed a journalist to investigate what had actually happened and, the problems they had and things like that. And the article is now up on Medium. And
was there anything surprising about the situation that the writer discovered?
Not really. Not anything that I think, if you kind of thought about it for a few minutes or kind of investigated it a little bit, it kind of makes sense. Seems to be a couple of things. One, they may have maybe lied a little bit in their original Kickstarter video that they hadn't quite got all of this stuff worked out. And I think just raising as much money as they did actually seemed to cause them a lot more problems because they were having problems with manufacturing and trying to get the amount that they needed and things like that.
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's as I say, I think we said last time, it's interesting that Kickstarter have done this and employed somebody, but yeah, there's not a lot of surprises there really.
Yeah, well, I think this one was particularly notable because it was the largest Kickstarter, at least at that time, was it either the UK or was it all of Europe?
I think it was the biggest in Europe. I believe it still is, but because Europe, we still don't get a lot of Kickstarters. But yeah, $3.5 million is a lot of money to raise. So yeah, we'll put that in the show notes if anyone wants to have a read.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Right, it's kind of interesting, worth checking out. Rob, another thing I thought maybe we should check in on today is the Apple TV, now that we've both been using it for about 3 months or so. What are you doing with yours these days? Yeah,
so kind of what I'd almost wished for, and we spoke about this before the TV actually got released. For me, the two main apps that I use are Netflix and Plex. Those are in my top row. That's pretty much all I use. On an average day, that's pretty much all I use. In terms of apps, I haven't really found anything in the last month or so. Anything really interesting. VLC came out, which is kind of an alternative to Plex of sorts. You play to kind of different files. Essentially, the equivalent of what you get on the Mac. Basically, you throw any file at it and it'll deal with it and play with it. And
you just pointed at a folder on your network. Is that how it works?
Yeah, it can do a few different things, but the main one is to point it at a folder on the network, and it will grab those files out and play them. But other than VLC, there really hasn't been anything that interesting. I mean, Amazon still haven't come out with their app because there was some rumors and some kind of unsubstantiated claims that Amazon had said they were working on it. But we still don't have that. So there really hasn't been a lot interesting come out for the TV. I don't know about you. Maybe it's a little bit different in the US of more of the US channels and networks jumped in, or
No, I think in terms of like video content, it hasn't. I haven't noticed a lot changing. Although I got to say, I haven't really looked at the store in a while, which I think is a problem in terms of trying to actually sell apps on the store. I think I have seen a few that are apps that are on both platforms, both iOS devices as well as Apple TV. And I think my sense is if you want to sell something on the Apple TV, you really have to have an iOS component now, because there's no good way to otherwise to sell it, right?
No, I mean, we're still, as you say, we're 3 months in, and you as a developer, you've got King Me is out. I assume that's still in the store, and you've still got no way to share a link for that. You've still got to go, just search the store for King Me, and it's really not a good flow for getting somebody to buy something from you.
Right. I mean, the only so in terms of my personal use, I'm just kind of using my Apple TV the way I've always used it, which is to watch TV. I haven't used a lot of apps. We do have some games, mostly games that we already own that put out an Apple TV component, and we'll I'll fire that up once in a while. But I got to say, I don't think I've done it since before the holidays. More than anything, we use it for Netflix, like you do, and also I use mine for music a fair amount. Because I've just got my library hooked up to that and Apple Music and everything, so it's in a nice central part of the first floor of our house. So it's a good way. It's hooked up to my stereo, so it's a good way to play music in the background. And then just iTunes content, whether it's renting a movie on a Friday night or watching some television shows. Those are kind of my main use cases.
Yeah, as you say, there's. For me, it's really the same. The bonus being that Plex is there, and there's a few other apps as well. There was one that I sideloaded for comedians in cars getting coffee. Somebody had worked out a way to, or maybe they've got an API. I'm not too sure, but somebody's kind of built an app for that, which is nice, because otherwise, previously I'd have to watch it on my laptop and things like that. But yeah, as you say, I mean this might be the future of TV, but maybe TV's just not that exciting. Maybe people really don't need that much stuff.
Right, and it's one of those things. Maybe it's not for you or me, but it might be for other people who watch more TV or really do want to play games on their, casual games on their TV. I don't play a ton of games and I don't watch a ton of TV, so I'm probably not the best person to evaluate it. But I do kind of feel it the buzz has worn off of it very quickly, at least in the press. But speaking of new apps, I did see one that I have been meaning to check out but have not yet done so, which is Remote Buddy Display. Did you see Graham Spencer wrote something about this on Mac Stories about a week ago? It lets you mirror your Mac desktop to your television.
Yeah, I did see this. The developer of this app did send me a license for it, probably when it first came out, so it's just after the Apple TV launch. And yeah, this is a really interesting. It's a really interesting app. I'm not sure if it's for me, but I can certainly see, in certain environments like this would be really, really useful. In education environments, your schools and universities, things like that. I can definitely see how this would be really useful.
Yeah, it looks like it's €25, and I haven't checked it out, but it does look. It looks very well done. I mean, it looks like a lot of thought went into putting this together. And you're right, in education, or I could see this in like a conference room for if you need something more than just Keynote to make a presentation. You need to demonstrate some sort of software or something. Could be really good for that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as we say, I mean, we're kind of trying to think how it's changed in 3 months, but to be honest, like, once Plex came out, and I'm starting to think maybe Amazon are never going to release their app.
Yeah, I'm still holding out hope for that, because I have started watching some Amazon content, and it's it's not a big deal. I just switch over to the Roku that I have, but it'd be nice if I could just do it all in one place.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been easier for me now with the because I watch Amazon Prime through the Xbox One, because that's instant on. It's fairly quick to kind of just get into it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, as you say, and I think we said this before, it'd just be nice to have that all on one device and not have to switch. And it's actually in some ways kind of stops me from seeing what's on Amazon on Amazon Video, because I won't necessarily look there for something to watch, because I've already checked, Netflix and maybe, Plex if I've got some of the stuff that I've got on there. So yeah, I mean, hope, as you say, I'm holding out hope, same as you, that they will actually release an app soon.
Yeah, I am too, and for me the iPad Pro has helped with that too, because I have watched some on there instead of watching on TV, because it's big enough to really enjoy a show on.
Yeah, I mean the thing that bugged me, I think we mentioned this, but I emailed Amazon, when the TV first came out, pretended like I didn't know why the app was there. And their solution was, oh, well, there's no app, but you can AirPlay it. And I think that's not... I don't think it's fair to assume that somebody has an iPhone or an iPad to be able to watch it on this new TV device. A lot of people presumably do buy these TV boxes, without maybe they've got an Android phone or Windows phone or whatever. I don't think AirPlay is a good enough solution to watching it on the TV.
Yeah, they're leaving a lot of people behind by doing that, I think. But hopefully they'll do something soon. My guess is they're just, I don't know, they're just waiting, or it's not a priority.
Yeah, and it could be that Amazon Prime's a little bit complicated as well, because there's Prime Video, and then there's the Prime Video, but it's the rental and the buying. So maybe they've got some complications there with making sure that only the right content shows up and explaining that well in the UI and things like that.
Right. So, Rob, switching topics for a second, what about... I noticed that on iOS there was a new game that came out this week called Exploding Kittens, and obviously that's not a new thing, but it's new to iOS. And I know that this was a Kickstarter back in the day that got a lot of attention, but it didn't get much attention from me. So can you kind of fill me in on what's going on and why this is a big deal?
Yeah, so Exploding Kittens was a Kickstarter quite a few months ago now, actually quite a long time ago now, and it was made by Matthew Inman, who runs the Oatmeal. So he's a comic kind of artist, and does web comics and things like that. And they'd invented this card game, and he'd done the illustrations, and he had a couple of other people with him doing various different parts of the project. And the Kickstarter was, I think it was the most backed Kickstarter ever. So it wasn't the most amount of money, but the amount of people that backed it was the largest amount. And they made, they got from Kickstarter $8.7 million.
Wow.
I think I can't remember exactly how much they wanted, but it was nowhere near that much. I think it was only maybe $50,000 or something like that. Uh-huh. So they got a huge amount. Presumably through the popularity, of Oatmeal, because he's really popular, and people enjoy his comics and his illustrations and things like that.
Right.
So the combination of all that, they made this huge amount, and they've got this. It's a fun card game. I backed it and I played it over Christmas with my parents, and I've played it a few times since then. So they've now taken the card game itself and ported it to iOS. Which is, you probably saw my tweet that I was quite excited about it, and then once I downloaded it, it kind of occurred to me that it's a little bit redundant.
How so?
So essentially, say me and you, we're somewhere and we want to play Exploding Kittens. The app is only good for local play, and we've both got to have the app, which I guess is fine, like if you don't want to buy a card game, but for anyone who's kind of got the card game, like if we wanted to play, we would presumably just play with the card game rather than using our iPhones.
Right. Yeah, no, it seems to me that's a missed opportunity. I mean, to really expand who's playing the game, it'd be nice if you and I could play across the Atlantic. Yeah, exactly.
I can certainly see that it is good to get it in the App Store, because not everyone can afford to spend I guess it's probably about $20, maybe $20 or $30 for the physical game. Whereas the iOS app is, I think, $2.99, something like that. So there's a cost aspect to it as well. That it's it might be a little bit cheaper, or perhaps maybe it's not distributed in a certain country, but they can do that through the App Store.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be my first thought, that, you know, maybe it just gives them access to more customers, because not everybody's gonna want to spend and buy a physical game.
No, that's true. I'm sure distribution of an actual physical card game is a pain, especially when you're talking about, you know, shipping it to different continents. So I can see that for sure. How does the game work?
Yeah, so essentially the game works if you pull up a exploding kitten card from the deck, you die. You're out of the game.
Okay.
But you also have cards. You have a diffuse card. So if you've still got a diffuse card in your hand, you play that, and you don't die, so you can stay in the game. So it's a relatively short game. Like, even playing with kind of 3 or 4 people, it will only last maybe 10 or 15 minutes. But you have various different cards. Like, you know, you can attack somebody else and tell them to draw more cards from the deck, in the hopes that they will get an exploding kitten.
All right.
And you can kind of, you know, you can say, no, I don't want you to do that. There's different cards, so you can kind of defend against that. You know, and the illustrations are really nice, and they're kind of, you know, jokey and funny. And there's also what they describe as the not safe for work deck, which is, it's not really not safe for work, but it's just a little, it's not family friendly per se. So yeah, they've got the 2 decks. You can kind of play with either deck, and the game plays the same. But yeah, it's a really fun game. Like, as I say, I played it over Christmas with my parents, and you know, we played maybe 4 or 5 games over an hour or so. So they really don't last too long. But it's just once you've played through once, it's kind of really easy to pick up.
Oh, okay. Well, I like that kind of game. I was just looking at it on iTunes right now, and right now they're doing a launch special. So the app itself is $2, and it's got 3 different card packs as in-app purchases, and right now they're all free. It doesn't really say what they're going to be eventually, but, you know, if you're interested in this at all, might be a good idea to pick it up now when you can get the in-app purchases for free.
Yeah, and then that's exactly what I did. I haven't actually used the app because, you know, I haven't actually got anyone to test it out with. Because, as you say, I can't kind of do it, you know, over a distance. It has to be kind of local multiplayer.
Right.
You know, but it looks like, from what I have seen of it, and I kind of looked up some videos of it and stuff, it does look like a really, really well done app.
Does it look like the thing to you that they could implement some sort of networked, you know, over the internet version of this?
I think you probably could. The biggest issue, kind of, because of the way the game works, you want to be able to. There's one particular card, the Nope card. You can play that even when it's not your turn. So I can say you're 2 or 3 people round from me and you play a card. I can put the Nope card down and stop you from doing that. And I wonder, I can't quite see how that would work if it was.
Yeah, you'd have to have some kind of timer built in or something like that in order to do it that way, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. You know, so, you know, I might complain about it not having kind of that kind of functionality, but I off the top of my head, I can't see a good solution to how that would work anyway.
Yeah, unless you had everybody playing and focused on the game at a particular time. You know, you couldn't play it asynchronously, as they say.
Yeah, definitely not. So, but yeah, you know, it's a nice alternative if you know, maybe you just don't want to buy the card game, but you're interested in playing it. Then the app is probably a good alternative to that.
All right, well, maybe I'll check it out.
So, let's do this topic, John, because I've kind of wanted to do it for a while.
Yeah, we've talked about it for a while, but what are we talking about?
We are talking about email.
Yeah, you floored me the other day because you told me you get like 5 emails a day, and I can't imagine that email is a problem for you if that's the case.
No, but let me start before we carry. I hate email. I think for most things it's used for, it is a terrible solution for what it's used for. And I'm talking about things like notifications and newsletters and things like that. They're not. It doesn't feel like they kind of fit what email is for.
Yeah, well, that's something we can all agree on, is that email is awful.
Yeah, I think we can all agree it's terrible. But you mentioned, as I've said to you, I maybe get 4 or 5 emails a day, which is not many. But that's by design. You know, I've put a lot of effort into making sure that I don't sign up to people, you know, to mailing lists for marketing people and newsletters and things like that. There's a couple of exceptions which we'll probably get to, but for the most part, like, I won't sign up to newsletters or notifications from Twitter and Facebook and all these other services. Like, I don't want any of that in my email. Like, it doesn't feel for me like that's the place for it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and I don't like it either, although I have not been, and I thought I was aggressive about unsubscribing to things, because a lot of things just subscribe you whether you want them to or not, right? I mean, that's part of the problem. Whenever you buy something online, it seems like you get signed up for another email.
I think that's called growth hacking, John. That's the
yeah, it is, and I don't like that kind of hacking. It's and so I have way too many emails too, and I just opened up mail at the risk of screwing up Skype because I hadn't opened mail in a few days, and my Gmail account is showing 848 unread emails right now.
That makes me deeply uncomfortable, John.
But I have ways to deal with email, which we'll talk about a little bit, that makes me completely comfortable with that.
And that's fine, John. It's your email inbox. I'm not going to say that. So
I've tried to go through it. It's just there are too many now. I don't know what to do, and I'm not going to just delete them all. I don't think. We'll see. So
I mentioned there's a couple of exceptions to the newsletters, and there's a couple that I accept. There's the Mac Stories newsletter, which is part of Club Mac Stories. And Six Colors as well, which is Jason Snell's website. I will accept those coming into my email inbox for now. And I know that Federico has said that he's working on some kind of web-based way for members to get the newsletter, which would be a lot better for me.
Yeah, no, I think that would be good. I subscribe to both of those as well, and I like them both. But I don't like that they're emails still.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem though, and I have this as well. The software products that I work on, in my day job, we need to notify people of a change. So something in the system has happened with their account. And I'm not talking about billing things. I'm talking about them actually using the system. Uh-huh. Maybe somebody's assigned them a to-do, that kind of thing. Right. And so we need to notify them somehow. And what is the one universal thing that we've all got in common is email. It's the only... Off the top, I can't think of another kind of protocol or app or anything like that everyone who's got a smartphone or internet access, or a laptop or whatever it is, everyone has access to email. And that is why it has become this huge problem, because there's no better way to make sure that you can connect with all of the people that you need to. If it's like a notification or a newsletter, something like that, it's the only one where everyone can receive it in the same format.
Right. Yeah. So my inbox is probably a combination of what a lot of people have, which is it's notifications like that. I mean, you and I use Dropbox Paper, and so I get a notification every now and then that you've changed, the show note document, which is, I wish there was a better way, because I really don't like that much. I have the same thing with Box, which I use with the Mac Stories team. That sends me an email every time something changes. GitHub, you can at least control the GitHub emails. But then there's all sorts of things like delivery notices for things I ordered, or things from stores that I'm interested in seeing what they have to say from time to time. So I don't really want to unsubscribe, but I don't really want to get the email every single week. Part of it, so some of it's a frequency thing, some of it's just not getting around to unsubscribing. But then there are newsletters, there are bills, there are legitimate actual humans that send me messages from time to time. There are really very few of those, but they exist. So it's just a big bucket full of mess, really. I mean, it's hard to parse out the good ones from the bad ones.
Yeah, and you mentioned a good one. Like GitHub is one that would drive me mad, because at work we use GitHub pretty much for everything. All our projects are on there and things like that. And if I had GitHub emails on, I would be getting hundreds of those a day. So what I did for GitHub, there's a menu bar app called Gitify. And that basically sits in the menu bar and will pull in your GitHub notifications. so I can turn the emails off and they just sit in my menu bar. And you mentioned another one, bills and things like that. And what I've noticed is like, so my bank will send me an email every month to tell me my statement's ready. But God forbid they actually put that information in the email. Like, just tell me what my balance is if you're that bothered to send me a notification. But it's not. This email just says, your statement's ready. Click here to view it. So I click it, and then I have to log in and go to statements. Like, just put that information in the email if that's what you want to send me. And I can't unsubscribe from them. This is like a forced kind of, no, you have to know when your bill, your statement's ready.
Right. Yeah. No. So there's a lot of problems with email. And the other thing that drives me a little nuts are people who use email like it's texting. So it's like back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. That drives me a little batty. But enough complaining, Rob. I mean, how is it that you've gotten yourself down to only a handful of emails a day, just aggressively unsubscribing to everything?
Pretty much. Any kind of newsletter that I get signed up to from, whatever. If I sign up for a service, you're pretty much guaranteed to end up on a mailing list, whether you want to or not. As soon as that email comes in, the first email from that newsletter, I make sure to unsubscribe from it. I don't put myself on mailing lists for, when the apps have got like holding pages and it's like, oh, let me know when this app is available. I won't put my email in those. Ideally, for me, I will find the person on Twitter or the app's actual Twitter account. And I'd rather follow somebody there for a month or two than be part of their mailing list, which may or may not send me loads and loads of emails.
Right. No, that's good. I have a couple of tools that I use. I mean, I guess right now, more than anything, I'm using Outlook on iOS because the focus inbox that they have is really good. And that's why I can live with all those emails sitting in my inbox, because it'll basically pull out anything that's from a person and put it in the focus inbox, and then it'll tell you how many you have that are in the other, and I'll glance at the others and I can set up a rule to make sure it ends up in the focused email inbox. And it's easier than trying to manage the emails aggressively for me, I found. I mean, I was using Spark for a while, which the downside of Spark, which is from Readle, is that it's only iPhone right now. I know that they're working on an iPad app. I think that's in beta now. They do not have a Mac app yet, although I think I read somewhere that they might be working on one soon, but I haven't heard anything in particular about that. That's good, although I found that it was an extra tap or so or two to delete an email. And what's nice about Outlook is that I can set up one of the swipes to just delete the email really quickly, which I love. I mean, I've only been using it for a few weeks, but and a lot of those emails that I mentioned in my inbox are really old. I mean, I've been much better at managing my email in the last month or so since I've been using Outlook than I have in the past. The other gesture that I add to I put in Outlook is to flag the email, because I signed up for the email service with the To-Do app on iOS, and that's been fantastic because really one of the problems with email is that there's so much junk in that bucket, and some of them are things you have to do, or some of them are things you need to reference later, but they're interspersed with all this spam basically, and the To-Do email integration has been a great way to pull that stuff out, because what you can do is you pull out the entirety of the text of the email along with a link that'll link you back to the original email, so you can put it in an inbox and actually just deal with those few that you have to do something with, rather than going and hunting back for it in your inbox later on.
Yeah, that sounds really good actually. I've heard quite a few people talking about the email integration, and I think you're right. I think that tends to be one of the other problems is people, you go to your inbox, and I can imagine, if you get a lot of email, you hit one email, oh, I need to do something with this. And then you're kind of like, oh, what do I need to do with it? Because, as try as they might, like, email is not a to-do list. No matter how clever your app may or may not be, your mail client, that's not what email is.
Right.
And they kind of, they hack around, and Mailbox is a good example of this with the snoozing and the various different things that would do. Like, it was great as long as you stayed within Mailbox, but it gets very complicated very quickly if you need to use something else, on another machine that doesn't have Mailbox and things like that.
Right.
And I think, as you say, like the to-do email integration, that seems like a much better solution, to just take the email and move it somewhere else.
I would say the one, right. I mean, the one downside of the to-do integration, hopefully this is something that they add later, is it can't handle attachments. So, like, when you pull the email in, it's the text of the email only. It's not the attachment as well, which I would really like to have any attachments come along with it. I was doing for a while, I created a script that I do for my affiliate linking. I get reports, and I wrote a script that just pulls down the data at 2 a.m. every day. And then puts it. I was putting it in an email as an attachment, as a CSV file, and I wanted to pull it into To Do, and that wasn't working because it didn't bring the attachments along. So what I ended up doing was dropping it into Dropbox, routing it through IFTTT, which creates a Dropbox link to the file, and then putting it in To Do, which works really well because it just drops it in my inbox. I can tap on it, it opens up the Dropbox file, and I can add it to a spreadsheet and see what's been going on with the affiliate linking stuff.
Yeah, and then again, things like IFTTT, it's nice to be able to kind of link this stuff together and get these emails. I think that's the biggest problem is once you've got this email that it needs to be actioned, like, it really just needs to be moved out of somewhere else, because otherwise it's sat there just kind of not doing anything, but it's also there, and like you're always kind of aware that it's in the list and things like that.
Right, and it gets buried very easily.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine if you get more emails than I do, this stuff gets buried pretty quickly.
Well, email is one of those things that if I'm busy, I just ignore it. Personal email. Just stay away from it for a while. And the problem is it's just a problem because it gets buried, as I said, and then you can't find it again, and then you're searching, and it's just not the way to do email. So I guess that's how I kind of manage it, and it's working out pretty well so far. I would like to kind of go through and blow out the rest of those emails in the inbox, but it's not really a high priority since I seem to be getting all the ones I need. There's the whole other side, which is sending, which is not as big a deal for me because I don't send a lot of email anymore. Most of the communications I have go through Slack or iMessage or something like that. I mean, you and I don't email, right? And I don't email.
No, definitely not. I can't. Honestly, I can't remember the last time I sent an email.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Slack 90% of the time, or maybe I'll send you an iMessage once in a while, but that's about it. And that's really the same thing with, the Mac Stories team when I'm working with them. That's all in Slack at this point.
Yeah, I think, and Slack is an interesting one, and I've considered actually setting up a private channel, maybe in our podcast group or whatever, just to maybe send notifications there rather than through email, because I feel like kind of Slack's an interesting platform because it's supposed to just kind of be for chat and these group chats and things, but with all the integrations, like, it feels like it's actually a really good place for notifications. Maybe not GitHub, because I kind of need to action those straight away and look at them. But, I can certainly see a scenario where, me sending, I don't know, if I could filter out, say, my Amazon order emails and just kind of say, this is your confirmation email, just so I know it's happened.
Yeah, the downside is you need a paid account to do the email stuff. Pretty sure.
Yeah. So that's
and it gets expensive fast.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's not necessarily ideal.
Yeah, but there are good. You're right. There are good integrations you can do, even if it's not the email stuff. I mean, I get sales reports, for instance, from AppFigures, or one of the services that connects with your iTunes Connect account. I get sales figures dropped into a Slack I have for the apps that I do. So
yeah, and I mean, and you set up one for us to keep an eye on reviews for the podcast. And rather than us both getting an email when there's a new review, it just goes into the Slack channel and we can see it. And that also brings us nicely just to mention, if you'd like to leave us a review, we'd really like that in iTunes. That'd be great.
Yeah, we'll get it right away because you'll ping us in the Slack because it'll show right up in a nice little formatted thing where we can see the whole review. And the other thing that's nice about that too is that it's basic. I assume that it's checking out all the RSS feeds for each of the stores around the world, so we don't have to go logging into various stores. Wherever the review is left, it gets sent to us.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, I think that is a perfect example of something that. It's just a notification. It's just a few lines of text that we need to see, but it doesn't need to be an email. But of course, then are we getting into this dangerous territory where Slack just becomes email at that point? Like, if you start sending everything there, maybe you're just doing everything in Slack rather than in your email client.
No, it's true. Although at least with channels, you can set up different channels for different things and kind of on a per channel basis set up notifications. So, if we were being inundated with hundreds of reviews, which we are not at this point, we could shuffle that off to a separate channel, and that way, you could maybe look at it once a week or whenever you felt like it, as opposed to getting pinged every time someone dropped in a new review.
Yeah, definitely. So anything else on email, John? Because I think certainly for my use case, I've kind of covered everything.
Yeah, no, not really. Other than I did just do a review on Mac Stories of an app called Mail Butler, which is a series of plugins for Apple's Mail app, which if you are a heavy user of email, especially sending, you might find this interesting. It allows you to do things like send delayed emails, to get notifications when you've forgotten to include an attachment. It actually has a undo send feature, which is really just all it's doing is sending the email a minute or two later instead of right away. But it gives you the opportunity then to recall the email before it actually goes out of your drafts inbox. So if you do send a lot of email, Mail Butler is worth taking a look at. It's a little pricey. It's a subscription model. It's, I think, if you do it on an annual basis, it's about €6 a month. If you do it on a monthly basis, it's I think €8 a month. So
okay, brilliant. Well, we'll put a link in the show notes to that. And as you say, I think it's definitely built for a certain type of person who maybe sends a lot of email and that kind of thing. But yeah, it looks pretty interesting, so we'll put a link for that. So the last topic we've got was just kind of things that we've been watching and things like that. So John, do you want to start? Because this is an Amazon Prime show, which is kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I've actually got two shows I decided, although one of them I haven't watched yet. So buyer beware. But the first one is The Man in the High Castle, which is an Amazon Prime original series, I guess, just like Netflix is doing its own television series now. It's 10 episodes, and I'm 6 or 7 into it so far. It's an alternate history theme where it's set in 1962 after the Germans and the Japanese have won World War II, and the eastern 2/3 of the U.S. are occupied by the Germans and the western third by the Japanese. And there's some intrigue and mystery surrounding the Man in the High Castle, which is all still very confusing, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but it's a really well done series. Set, as I said, in 1962, and does a great job of setting it in that alternative history and giving you a sense for what it might be like if that had been the case.
Yeah, I've watched this as well. I watched this. I believe it was over the Christmas period, and as you say, like it's just really interesting to watch. It's based on a novel, so if you've read the novel already, presumably you know what's going to happen. But it's and one of the parts I found actually from not just an Amazon original but Netflix as well, it's really nice to have shorter seasons on these shows, like 10 or 12 episodes. Right. I feel is actually a much nicer amount for a season for the most part. I mean, it's these longer seasons, like 20 or 24 episodes, is much more of an American thing anyway. I mean, in the UK, our series are maybe 6 or 7 episodes long for the most part. But it's kind of nice to have these shorter series, like Jessica Jones and Daredevil and Man in the High Castle, because it kind of, you don't feel as kind of exhausted by the time you get to the end of it.
Yeah, have you watched the whole thing?
I have. Obviously, no spoilers. We won't be spoiling anything today, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the second series.
Yeah, it's based on a Philip K. Dick novel, and he's the author who wrote Blade Runner. It's really well done. I got hooked right immediately by it. I think the first night I watched like 4 episodes back to back, and then I've been watching them on my iPad since then.
Yeah, it's definitely, and as I say, they've already confirmed a second series. I think this has actually been their most popular original series so far, which doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's definitely well done. The other thing that I wanted to mention, which starts here tonight, is the X-Files, which back in the day I was a big X-Files fan. It doesn't maybe hold up super well. It's a little dated, but the old ones, but they've brought it back. And it's premiering tonight on Fox, so I'm looking forward to. I actually bought the series on iTunes, which I'll do once in a while. Usually I won't do that unless I know it's good, and I don't know yet whether the X-Files is going to be any good, but I figured for old time's sake, I'd pick it up and just watch it without any commercials.
So this is a new series of the X-Files, right? Is that?
It is, although it's all the original actors, and it's really just, I think it's set to pick up where the X-Files left off, but 15 years later or something.
Oh, okay. So it's not something that I've ever watched, and I'm not sure. Given the bits I have seen, I feel like if I hadn't watched it when it first came out, I'm probably not gonna get a lot out of it if I start watching it now.
Well, maybe. Although that one thing that they've always done, and I watched a preview of what was coming, like a 20-minute preview on YouTube last weekend, and originally the series did have some continuity of kind of a backstory, which I'm sure they're going to continue, but it also would have standalone episodes that really stand on their own, that are not, they don't have, there are no references to kind of the more overarching backstory and conspiracy theories that kind of populated that show. So it's I don't know, I'm looking forward to it. We'll see. I'll report back in a couple of weeks after I've seen a few episodes. So I'm not endorsing it yet, but I'm excited about it because I always liked that show.
Excellent. So I mentioned, I guess maybe we spoke about this probably last episode, or maybe it was on our Christmas episode, that we'd both been watching Daredevil and Jessica Jones, and I mentioned I'd been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. So over the Christmas period, we finished kind of all of the Marvel stuff, all of the the films and the TV shows. We'd watched it all. So we decided to have a go and see what DC had to offer in terms of their TV shows. And we've been watching Arrow and Flash because they're both part of what DC are calling the Arrowverse, which is this kind of shared universe between both these shows.
I've seen some of these, but not all of them.
Yeah, so you've got the first 2 series of Arrow just kind of run by themselves, and then Flash starts the same time as series 3 of Arrow. And there's maybe not a lot of crossover. There's mostly just kind of vague references to things that are happening in the other shows, but there are a couple of episodes where there's a full-on crossover event, I guess they would call it, with all the characters in both shows and things like that. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that DC are kind of trying to, even if it's certainly on a smaller scale, at least trying to build kind of their own, kind of not necessarily a cinematic universe, but just kind of this shared universe between a few of their shows.
Yeah, which one do you like better? I mean, I've seen both of them, and I think I probably like Flash better on balance.
I think I'm a bigger fan of Arrow, but right now we're watching the one that's out on TV now, I guess, Series 4. Series 4 of Arrow and Series 2 of Flash.
I don't think I've seen Arrow since one of those first 2 seasons before Flash had started.
So right at the moment, like we watch one episode of Flash, then one episode of Arrow, because that's kind of how it was aired on TV.
Okay.
And I really can't pick a favourite, I don't think. I think I do enjoy Arrow more, but that might just be because I've watched more of it, because it's got the extra series. But I'll watch an episode of Arrow and be like, oh, I really want to watch the next episode, but I'll watch a Flash because that's kind of how they're on TV. And then I feel the same about the Flash at the end. So I feel like they're both very, very different. Flash is much more kind of happier and upbeat, I think, whereas Arrow's much more of a drama, where Flash is more of a kind of drama comedy type thing.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. There's definitely a lighter tone to it.
Yeah, and even kind of when the Arrow characters are on the Flash, even those characters are much happier when they're on the Flash than when they go back to their own show.
Back to their dark universe.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting that they're doing this shared universe, and they've kind of allegedly there's going to be some kind of Supergirl crossover. Although Supergirl apparently isn't part of this Arrowverse, she will maybe or maybe not be in the show, or there'll be some kind of reference to it.
All right.
So
yeah,
again,
I do worry a little. I'm sorry. I do worry a little bit that we're going to get all TV shows are going to be some sort of universe thing, and that it's not going to be done well.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because when the crossover goes well, there's one particular section of Arrow and Flash where they cross over where it's really enjoyable, and it's really interesting to kind of see the two sets of characters interact. But as you say, for the most part, these shows aren't really crossing over that much. Like they just happen to reference each other every now and again.
Right.
And having watched them both, like I think you could watch them without the other one. But you kind of a bit like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and TV shows and things like that. You can watch them all individually, but I feel like you will get more out of them if you've watched everything. But yeah, I'm kind of a little bit as concerned as you are that everything will just become... Everything has to have more than one thing to it.
Right. I mean, it's really it's tie-in type thing, right? I mean, it's not unlike what you see in other types of media. It's trying to get you to it's trying to make the higher switching costs, I think, in a way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, DC are interested in it. They also have Gotham, the Gotham TV show, which is you're kind of following James Gordon, Commissioner Gordon, but when he's a lot younger. And Bruce Wayne is kind of 12 or 13, so there's no Batman, there's no concept of Batman yet.
Right.
But that isn't part of this shared universe. That is an entirely separate thing on its own. And that's a really good show as well. But the biggest problem I have with DC is they can't... The problem I have is this, so we're going to get onto the Suicide Squad trailer in a minute. And I did mention this on Twitter, but we have the Suicide Squad film coming out later this year. But there's also a representation, in I think it's Arrow, the Suicide Squad are referenced and things like that. But it's not the same Suicide Squad that's in the films. These are two completely separate stories, which is kind of a little bit weird that they're out on, Arrow and Flash are out on TV now, and then the Suicide Squad film comes out, but it's nothing to do with the Suicide Squad that were in Arrow.
Yeah, I mean, having watched the trailer, just the feel of the different the trailer versus the TV shows is very, very different, and that's one place I think Marvel does a pretty good job. Is that obviously there's a much lower budget for television shows, and you're not going to get the special effects you see in some of the Marvel movies, but I think they do a better job of integrating television with the movies than DC seems to be being able to do.
Yeah, I think the problem DC have in this particular scenario is they kind of want to use all their best characters, Harley Quinn and Deadshot and all these kind of characters that people like, specifically the villains, because DC have very, very good villains. But they want to use them in Batman films. They want to use them in Gotham and the TV shows, but they also want to make films about them as well. So everything kind of gets quite crossed over quite a lot.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, what did you think of the trailer if you just put it in isolation and don't kind of consider the crossover stuff? Yeah,
absolutely. I'm excited for the film. This particular trailer is one of the worst trailers I've ever seen. I really didn't enjoy it. So they used what's the song they've used? Is it Bohemian Rhapsody they've used, or Don't Stop Me Now?
Yeah, I forget. I watched it this week, and the song part of it was completely unmemorable. So maybe it didn't do the job it was supposed to do.
Yeah, so it's one of the two. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they've kind of, they want to kind of match it up with the song, and obviously it's a very popular song. Most people will recognize the song, so that your focus is on that. But they keep breaking up the song to add little clips to it. And I just don't think it works as a trailer.
Well, they're also trying to be very edgy compared to their TV shows, which strike me as a little more wholesome. Maybe not Arrow so much, but The Flash is a very family-friendly kind of TV show.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're obviously going for something a lot darker. There was a previous trailer for Suicide Squad which I enjoyed much more and actually kind of made me interested in the film. But this trailer on its own is just not very good at all.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've seen that first one. I'll have to check that out at some point.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it, and we'll put that one in the show notes as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, this is one of those movies that I watched the trailer. I don't think I disliked it as much as you did, but I definitely was. My thought of it on it was, well, I'm going to see how this goes, and how this is not a movie I'm going to rush out and see day one. I'll wait and see what people say about it once it's actually out in theaters, because it struck me as maybe everything interesting about it might be left in the trailer.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird one, but as you say, I think I'll probably do the same as you. I'm certainly not going to rush out and see it, but yeah, it looks interesting, but this particular trailer just didn't do it for me.
Right. All right. Well, we'll see, I guess. When's it coming out? It's coming out this summer, right?
Yeah, I think it's in the summer. I think they want to. I think they're going up against Civil War, kind of similar kind of time. Maybe May or June, something like that.
Yeah, well, that's the summertime set of movies, so I'm looking forward to it, I guess. Overall, just getting back. Part of the problem right now is that in the wake of Star Wars, there has been a real dearth of movies. There haven't been a lot of really good movies coming out in the last month or so.
Yeah, definitely. But it's a good time to be alive if you enjoy superhero movies.
That is true. That is true.
Because you pretty much can't move for superhero movies right now.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I guess that's about all we have this week, unless you had anything more, Rob.
No, that was pretty much it for me as well.
Okay, well, so where can people find you online, Rob?
So I am at RMLewisUK on Twitter, and my website is roblewis.me. And where can people find you, John?
At John Voorhees on Twitter. Got some writing over on macstories.net, and my website is squibner.com, where I have my apps and stuff.
And there we go. I think that's probably the end of the episode for this week.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, see you soon, John.